Okay, members.
He says hello.
Members, can I remind you that this meeting will be recorded and ask you to note that mobile phones will be switched off as they interfere with the recording. Tablet devices should be switched to mute. Can I remind members to declare their interest as appropriate throughout the meeting. Can I formally welcome, he's not here actually, so Sean Rogers is now taking over from Joe Byrne, so if he turns up later we can formally welcome him. That is declaration of interest. John Rogers will now be the new deputy chairperson, and his declaration of interest is available on the Assembly website. I advise members that we will go into closed session to consider the forward work programme at the end of the meeting. Declare the meeting open to the public. Agenda item 1, have we any apologies? Not as such. I think Sean Rogers hoped to be along later, isn't that right? Okay. Agenda item 2, the person's business. I have no particular business at all.
No, that's
okay. Other than my constituency business. Agenda item 3, minutes of the meeting 12th of January 2016. Can I refer members to the draft minutes of the meeting on 12th of January 2016 at page 6 to 16. Members content that the draft minutes are accurate? Okay, members, so I will sign. Okay, then the 4 matters arising. Confirm members to matters arising at pages 19 to 21. Are members content to note matters arising as suggested in the index sheet at page 18. One matter from the MP for the area in relation to flooding. That has been circulated, seeking inquiry into the flooding and the issues around the, well, in the main in his constituency. We done a letter last week to the Minister in relation to encouraging her to ensure that there's compensation to farmers and businesses in the area that are those that were flooded, that they would. So that letter's done. I think probably reading the MP's letter to the Minister and the letter to ourselves, we probably should do a letter to the Minister encouraging an inquiry into the levels of the lock on all the issues around the flooding. As and I think a number of members, myself and Sydney, and I think Joanne.
Sure, yes, and I spent a long time last week, and I know Sydney's been out too, and the purchase round Portadown. Yeah. And there's certainly, when you say that's 3-4 weeks down the line, still under water, and you know the distraught, the farmers and their livelihood, and do they reseed or do they not, and is there any compensation coming? There's so many unanswers and ambiguity, and uncertainty that this could happen again next year without any concrete steps. Yes,
and that's why I think this committee should write a letter supporting the MP's call for an inquiry. I think it's important to do that.
It's not only what has happened this year and what has happened in recent weeks. As I said here, this is an ongoing issue down around in my area and down around the Birches and Mockery area along that Loch Shore. Yep. And I say we've all visited businesses and down to Kinnigo, and it's horrendously what they're going through. They've lost those businesses down around the marina and all that have lost their livelihood. So I think there has to be some sort of a full investigation, but not only what took place or what didn't take place this particular year. It's what we're looking for resolution to prevent. Now I know it's not easy to prevent flooding per se right across the board, but it has to be in some way looked at to stop it being so, what do you call it, detrimental to those people each and every year. Now I know people are waiting from last year. It didn't hit the media as much, but they're waiting on compensation or from their insurance from last year in their homes. And homes have been destroyed, businesses have been destroyed, grassland has been destroyed. Everything is gone down around that area, and I'm sure down around Fermanagh is all no different. But I think there has to be a full investigation, a full inquiry, and I certainly would back. This is the first time I've read the letter, by the way, today. I think there has to be a full inquiry by the Minister or by the Department to look into this and ensure that whatever effective measures we can do is to put into immediate effect. We cannot sit back and say let this go away to next year and then the same thing happen again.
Chair, I concur with those, because I know one of the farms I visited even last Thursday, they are in effect, they have 150 acres underwater. £30,000 it would take to reseed that for next year, but without assurances. And year on year they are seeing the deterioration, and in effect their farm could eventually become a floodplain. So I think even through the committee stage, I think it would be remiss of us not to call him to ask the Minister here, or
I think asking for an inquiry is the proper thing to do, because I mean, this is I was speaking to the guy that you had visited, because he rang me that afternoon on the issue, and he explained, and he does accept that there will be flooding, but the difficulty this year is the flooding on his land will be for 3 months, not 3 weeks, and that can leave his grassland and all, and you know, you will never stop out flooding completely, but the level of flooding was to the extreme. And I mean, this last 5 years, I mean, I've been with farmers down in that area, and so has Sydney, and they've had to stop growing vegetables in ground that they grew vegetables in for 20 and 30 years, because the ground is gradually every year getting wetter. So
sure, that's went back just a number of years ago. You and I were there.
That's correct.
It's just not this year.
That's right.
Oh, sorry, Oliver wants to get in. Yes, Oliver.
I was looking at it.
Okay. No problem. No problem.
Right, you want to? No, that's fair enough, right? And you know, we listened to David Porter last week there, and we got a presentation, and we got a logical explanation as to why we couldn't drain the lock at one end, or drain the lock, allow water to come until from that end, right? But what you're describing from your constituency, I can equally describe the same thing at the other side of the lock gates at Timbridge, where the ground there is lying underwater for this last 3, 4, 5 weeks too, right? Hundreds of acres, right? Now, as a result, I've checked with David Porter, and he assures me there that the gates, there's 3 gates between Toome and Coleraine, and them gates are at full flow. No, there's no stoppages or that. So what my point is here, that if we allow more water to come into the lock, or to be drained into the lock, and more to be let out of the lock, our areas is just going to be completely saturated for the next.
I fully understand, but all we are calling for is an inquiry into.
I would agree with.
It's not. I can understand where you're coming from. Absolutely. I mean, there's no simple solution to this, and we as politicians can play the media and all the rest, but there's no simple solution. But anything that can be done to help, it's important that it's looked at.
Chair, I take that point, but there is an issue here, and it's debatable, is the level that the lock is kept at. And I asked this last week with David Porter. He says, because of all the interest on the lock, should it be fisheries and environmental people and boating people and all that, the level has been set in the 50s. It was reviewed in 71 or something. 71. It has never been changed. But I think this inquiry, we should have that investigation. Is there a possibility of moving the levels of the lock slightly to absorb some of that rainfall during the lesser months? I don't think, and I take your point, there's other places being flooded right around the lock. So this could be an overarching, it could look at the whole area right around the lock. But I think it all comes back to the levels. Now, David Porter might say it doesn't.
I don't think.
I think we need to establish if it doesn't. There's a debate here, and I think we need to get to that.
There is a parameter high wherein they can keep the levels okay. Yeah. They have been holding them at the highest of that parameter. What we are saying is, a wee bit earlier in the year, I surmise this year there was a very dry September and October, maybe 7 weeks without rain, and they probably held it fairly high because of that. And maybe it's a mistake, but they're not. Of course, they're not going to admit that.
I agree totally with what you're saying about a review and to look at the whole situation again. Absolutely, but if we're looking for a quick fix to drain one.
No, there's no quick fix. Anybody thinks that's only a
Chair, it's worrying too. I had senior Rivers Agency officials out with me too, and they're talking about consultation. Well, we all know in this building consultation, and then deciding to do something can take years. So I do think we need to move quickly, because we will be at this stage again next year, as we have last year. And
but there's one thing we must not do with farmers: build up their hopes that there's a big magic wand we can do. I think that's important, because
I think
there's no magic wand.
Farmers are realistic to know, but to hear that they're going to consult and bring in experts on lowering the levels, as you have said, that's not much comfort to farmers when you're thinking to spend 30,000 reseeding or not.
I think, Joanne, in fairness, I was speaking to the same farmer. At this stage, as no one knows what they have to do till the floods go down. They may not have to, like, I mean, it's not as, you know, I think we can exaggerate things to a big,
Yeah.
you know, the race people has lost, there's absolutely no doubt about it.
Chair,
People
it
who
was
land-
several farmers. You maybe spoke to one of them, but I visited several farmers.
Yeah,
last week.
you did. I spoke to the main one, the one with the big acreage, because he rang me that afternoon.
He was one of the
He wanted
visits
to
they
speak-
did last
He wanted to speak to me that afternoon about the issue. So I had a long chat. So I know the mum or the father and all very well for years. But no, I think they do accept there will be flooding. It's the big issue for them is the length of time that their land's going to be flooded, and that's concerning them that they may have to reseed. There's no guarantee that will have to happen. But if their grass is underwater for 3 months, they are afraid that the grass will then die and be rotten and have to reseed it all. And that's the fear. There's no guarantee at this stage. We don't know for sure.
Well,
All right.
That's fair enough. Yeah. No, but all I'm saying is there, I'm just looking at it from a logical, I think, a logical point of view, and that is there, if you drain off, you know, Tally water to Seaboy from your area, right, you know, then the water that you let off is going to increase, you know, at the other side, right? So therefore, you know, this year can't be the solution.
So, but if that water was let out, what happens is if the
That
level
water's
was
absorbed.
the level was kept.
Yeah, during the summer, the best months.
Yeah, but it can't work this year now, you know.
No,
absolutely not.
That's what's
That's fair
happened.
enough.
Oh, no.
Yeah, what's happened, happened. Yeah.
Oliver, no.
Yes, I agree with, I don't disagree with anything you said here, but what you be very careful of here is what you say, not to raise anybody's expectations. And also, be careful here as well, because, as I said last week, you can get planning service running here and designating a whole raft of ground unfit for anything else.
Oliver, I wouldn't be concerned about that because
No, the outshot of that would be that the insurance companies will not cover. Now, if the insurance companies haven't
That's
paid out
happening
from
already.
last year,
No,
That's happening.
and that's what happened with us in Cushendall after the floods of '97. We all get letters from the insurance company 2 months after the flood to say if this happened again, you weren't covered. And that's what I would worry about, of keeping these people covered with insurance. The fields is one thing, but if their homes are going to get destroyed, then you need to have proper cover for them. Whereas if you're looking for compensation for a field, you know, there's only £2,000 or £1,000 compensation for a house from the local authority. So you got to weigh the two up here. And that's what I'd be very careful of, that the insurance companies don't turn work on you here and go against the insurance policies. Raising expectations is the second thing. And what Ian said there, we need to be careful of. If you lowered one, you could increase it.
that's why I think all we can do, because we're not the experts,
No, of course not, no.
call for a full inquiry into the issue. And I think it's not an issue that is members content that we write a letter to the
I would
minister.
propose that we run with this. It's the MP's letter says it's about this last 12 months. But I think any inquiries will have to look even outside of that in relation to lock levels, because I believe that this impacting, that's what's part of the problem. And I think any inquiry or any investigation should encompass that. That we should
Like any inquiry has to.
I think like we've had, and David Porter did say about climate change and such like last week, and you know, if things are changing, we have to change in the way we manage the water, the way we manage the lock, because that's the basin that takes the water. So I think it's going to have to be overarching here and maybe go outside. Certainly investigate what has happened over this past 12 months and particularly in this last 5 weeks, but also look at what can be done to ensure that we can mitigate against this going forward in years to come with the levels.
In any letter, we can
Or
say
such.
that the members have been concerned that for a number of years there seems to be a higher level of flooding each year.
It's increasing,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, each year, and that we would support the call for an inquiry into the issues around the flooding
Over this past 12 months, and
The last-
what
yes,
he says.
the last period.
And also to look at ways and means of investigate the lock levels and
Well, I think
rivers
you
and
can't
drainage and
have
whatever.
an inquiry into it without looking at that. I think,
Well,
Yeah.
maybe we mention
Is
that.
there anything we can talk about for future proofing, or what lessons will be learned going forward? Because as Sydney rightly said, we are getting wetter and this is getting worse year on year. So that's what concerns me. What's the strategy for next year? What's the plan for next year?
That you looked at last week.
Yes,
yeah.
Flood mitigation plans, the committee considered those last week, so.
yeah, no, absolutely, and I farmers and those realise is, I think they accept a certain level of flooding, because if you're low land it can happen, but the level of flooding there was totally extreme when there was flooding farmyards, and you know, it's several feet deeper than normal, and that is the issue. I don't think you would ever eradicate flooding totally, and I think most farmers would accept that.
Well, there's one
But-
lady down around the Mahary side there. I was speaking to her, apparently speaking to her relative, and she's 80 or 90 years into her 80 years, and she has never remembered, she's never witnessed the levels of flooding on a loch around that area in her lifetime.
Yes, I
But
was
that's telling
talking-
us something,
yeah.
that there's something is changing, something needs to be done, and what it is. And I think that needs to be investigated.
I
don't
had
think
a
any of us
farmer
want
of
to be here
82
next year.
said the same.
Yeah, we were with that farmer the week before.
Yes, never
Never.
ever experienced the like.
That was the same problem we were on with the week before. Remember, 82, he told us,
Yeah.
same thing.
Can I say also, Chair, you know, and fair play to you for saying, but I could say the same about people down our way. They've never seen the water levels stay and stayed so long in all their lives.
I'm not saying
But what I'm saying is, there, you know, that must say to us, right? You know,
I, for one, wouldn't say there's an easy solution to
No,
this,
there's no-
but at least it needs an inquiry and looked into.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's my view.
There's no sense and there's no point in displacing water from one area
No, it cannot.
to another area. That's not what this is about. I think it needs to be fully investigated by those who had the expertise to come back and tell us what they think is the issues.
Anyone else?
Or what can be done.
no,
Just
100%.
to add to that there, you know, we have to look at the other side of it too. In McGilligan, there's farmers down there have lost up to 30 acres that has lost
That's
their land
erosion.
to the erosion to the sea.
Yeah.
So you have a rise in water. Water levels in the sea are rising, so I don't know if that's anything to do with the lochs or rivers, but
Maybe.
you've lost 30 acres and
That's
there's
in
no
the whole
compensation for that.
Are members happy that
Yeah.
Clark
Yeah.
got the letter and I look at it and agree?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah, but I just-
Okay, right. So,
Okay.
okay, that's all right. Yeah, you'd have to go.
Yep.
Yeah, budget.
Can't do this because
See, can we get anybody else there?
we need 5. I'm like just
Or 4 now, we need.
There was some mistake there.
We'll suspend for a few minutes to see if we can get some. Item 6, 5.
5, yeah.
Okay, members, move on to agenda item 5, committee consideration of the final draft report rural needs bill. Can I refer members to the draft report on the rural needs bill at pages 23 to 53? I will now take members through each section of the report and seek agreement or otherwise. The main body of the report is at pages 29 to 51. Can I refer members to the introduction at pages 31 to 32? Are members content with the introduction, page 31 and 32? You want to take a second to look at that? Okay, members, you find that, I'm sure. Can I refer members to the section on consideration of the bill at pages 33 to 48? We will now deal with the paragraphs on the background to the bill. Members content with paragraphs 18 and 19?
Jacqueline, did you want to say something?
Yes. Sorry, Declan, sorry.
Oh, yeah, content.
Oh, no, that's all right, yeah. 18, 19, everyone else, happy enough? Okay. We'll now deal with the paragraphs on the issue of including named public bodies on the face of the bill. Members content with paragraph 20? There, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, members? Okay. Members content with paragraph 21? Okay, members. Members content with paragraph 22?
Yep.
Okay. Members content with paragraph 23? Okay, members?
Yep.
We're content with paragraph 24? or that's a statement again, isn't it? Okay, members?
Yep.
Paragraph 25.
Yep.
Okay. Paragraph 26. Okay. All right. Paragraph 27. Okay. Paragraph 28. Okay.
Yep.
Paragraph 29. Okay, ma'am. Paragraph 30. Paragraph 31. Okay. Paragraph 32. We're moving on to deal with paragraphs on the issue of strengthening the statutory duty of clause 1. So, okay, so that's paragraph 32. Okay. Paragraph 33. Okay, members?
Yep.
Paragraph 34. Okay. Paragraph 35. Okay. Move on to paragraph 36. Members content with that?
Yep.
Okay, members?
Yep.
Members content with paragraph 37? Okay, members? Paragraph, move on. Are members content with paragraph 38? Okay, members?
Yep.
Move on to paragraph 39. Okay, members?
Yep.
Paragraph 40. Okay, members? Move on to 41. Paragraph 41. Members. Members content? Okay. Move on to paragraph 42. Members content with paragraph 42? Okay. Paragraph 43. Members content with paragraph 43? We'll move on and we'll deal with the paragraphs on the issue of the transparency and accountability of the reporting agreements in clause 3. Are members content with paragraph 44? Yep. Okay, members. Members content with paragraph 45? Members content with paragraph 46? Okay. Members content with paragraph 47? Okay, members? Okay, we're on the paragraph, is content with, members content with paragraph 48. Okay, members? Members content with paragraph 49. Okay, members? Members content with paragraph 50. Okay. Members content with paragraph 51. Simple paragraph. Now move on to deal with the paragraphs on the issue of DARD's role in providing guidance, advice and information. And that is a paragraph for members content with paragraph 52. And members content with paragraph 53. Members content with paragraph 54. Okay, members? Yep. Members content with paragraph 55. Okay, members? Yes? No? Yes? Okay, members? Members content with paragraph 56.
Probably not put on in there, so it's all in there.
Okay, members? Members content with paragraph 57. Okay? Yep. Members content with paragraph 58 online. Okay. And now we deal with the paragraphs on the need to clarify the definitions and terminology used in the bill. Members content with paragraph 59. Okay, members? Members content with paragraph 60. Members content with paragraph 61. Okay, members? Members content with paragraph 62. Okay, members? We go on to paragraph 63, is it? Yeah, 63. Okay, members? We go on to paragraph 64. Members content with paragraph 64. Okay, members? Members content with paragraph 65. Members content with paragraph 66. Okay, members? We'll now deal with the paragraphs on the issue of non-compliance, sanctions and enforcement. Members content with paragraph 67. Members content? Okay. Members content with paragraph 68. Okay, members? Members content with paragraph 69. Okay, members? Members Members content with paragraph 70? Members content with paragraph 71? Yeah, members content with paragraph 72? Say.
Yep.
Good. Okay. Members content with paragraph 73? Okay, members?
Yep.
I now refer members to the committee clause by clause consideration of pages 49 to 51. If members are content, we'll go through this on a page by page basis. Members content with page 49. Okay, members? Members content with page 50. Okay, members? Yep. Page 51, are members content with page 51? Okay, members? Yep. Advise members that we will now consider Appendix 1 to 7, which is at page 52. Content of each appendix has not been included, but rather a list of what they will contain. Are members content with Appendix 1, minutes of proceedings?
Good.
Are members content with Appendix 2, minutes of evidence? Are members content with Appendix 3, written submissions? Are members content with Appendix 4, memoranda and papers from the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development?
Right.
Members content with Appendix 5, research papers?
Yep.
Members content with Appendix 6, other papers?
Yep.
Now that we've considered the report, we will now look at the executive summary. I refer members to the executive summary at pages 29 to 30. Members content with paragraph 1? Members content with paragraph 2? Members content with paragraph 3?
Yep.
Members content with paragraph 4? Members content with paragraph 5? Are members content with paragraph 6?
Yep.
That concludes our consideration of the report. It will be brought back to the committee next week for its final sign-off and order to print. Okay, members? At this stage, in his absence, I was welcoming our new Vice Chair, Sean Rogers. You're very welcome to the committee, and I look forward to working with you, Sean. You're very welcome. I
Thanks.
think you had a funeral, some today.
We had a tragic funeral in Castlewell. Sorry, but just to thank the chair, but also to acknowledge the great work of Joe Byrne that did previously on the chair. And I suppose agriculture and farming is nothing new to me. It's been in my blood from the word go. Okay, I got a back seat when I was principal and vice principal, but I suppose I better declare interested of my back this last few years doing a bit of farming again, albeit on a small scale.
Okay, you're very welcome.
Just tell the people when this is cancelled before guys, 1 second.
Agenda item 6, we were to get an hour briefing from the Irish Federation of Sea Anglers, and it was Gary Greig. He has rang in to say he's sick and unable to attend, so we have to accept that and move on. Agenda item 7, hour briefing, raised DARD budget 2016-17. Can I refer members to the memo from the clerk at pages 100 to 102 on the relevant extract from budget 2016-17 at pages 103 to 110. We also advise members that the project capital and resource budget provided by DARD officials at the meeting the 8th of December 2015 has been included at pages 111 to 112. Members will note that this information has been extracted from the budget document, which is due to be debated later today in the Assembly. I advise members that the committee will receive a briefing on budget 2016-17 at our next meeting, so members may find some of the points raised today useful when questioning DARD officials next week. Can I welcome Colin Bidgen, Research Officer? Can I ask you?
Bit of technical difficulty over here, but we'll
Yeah, you're okay, Colin.
Yeah,
Take your
thank you.
time. Take your time. Those technical difficulties can happen very easily.
They did this to me the other day when I was on the finance committee. Everything went yellow and then it went green.
This presentation is in your table papers, members. Thank you. Okay.
No, it was still yellow at the moment. I think it's actually this cable. Someone's doing this cable. And then shifted. Yeah, while Mark fiddles there, I'll just
Okay.
just make a few initial comments about this. In the scrutiny unit, we've produced a series of papers which we published on the website, which have been available in hard copy in the library. There was one looking at the economic context surrounding the budget with some up-to-date data. We also produced then second paper was about machinery and government transfers, which is really about the departmental reorganisation and the issues that the permanent secretary of the accounting officers need to assure themselves of when their departments are merging or transferring functions to others. And there are some questions in there for just checking that those accounting officers are discharging their functions correctly. The third paper was just some charts and things which I'll come to in a moment. And then the fourth paper was Lines of Questioning Briefing, which hopefully has a number of... it was a sort of generic briefing, but it went across the whole of the sort of strategic level of the budget. And then the idea is that this briefing then will... Oh, we've gone green again. We'll complement that by looking more specifically at the agriculture and rural development issues. I think we're almost getting somewhere here. Yep. Okay. I'll try really hard not to disturb it now and just get going. We just click it on the slideshow and. So, if you're ready, I'll kick off.
Okay,
Sorry,
okay.
Apologies for that.
No problem.
I think we need a new cable there. So this presentation, I won't keep you long, I promise you, but it would just set the context around how the budget was produced, and then we'll actually look in a bit more closely at the specific allocations for the successor department to DARD, if you like. I think people are calling it DERA. The Chancellor announced the spending review 2015 just a few weeks before Christmas, which set the overall, I suppose, spending envelope for the executive over the next few years. There isn't an awful lot terribly dramatic we can say about that. I mean, there is one observation, is that this dark blue section, which is the resource DEL, you can see is very flat. Now, essentially what that means is that over the next 4 years, the executive's going to get pretty much the same amount of cash each year as it got the preceding year, which is, once you take inflation into account, obviously the buying power that you have with that money will reduce, and the Treasury have estimated that over the period of the spending review will be down just over, well, around about 5.5% in real terms. Now that depends obviously on how effective the Treasury's prediction of inflation is. So it is a reduction. On the capital side, it's much more benign, I think would be the word that the Finance Minister used anyway, because it is going up slightly. Now, one of the most obvious issues with this flat cash situation is that although you may think, well, okay, it can't be too bad. Just one particular issue I picked out here from the Statistics and Research Agency's last population projections, where only just came out a few months ago. These colours represent the growth in the population over the age of 85 and clustered by district council area. Even in Fermanagh and South Tyrone and these other two yellow ones over here, it's projected that in just over this same spending review period, the 85 plus age group population is to increase by between 12.8 and 21%. So it's quite a significant increase. And then once you get into the ones which are red here, or orange, it's nearly a third increase. Now, what we know about that very elderly population is that it tends to drive costs in terms of healthcare, in terms of provision of services like social care, but also I think in terms of issues that this committee have been probably interested in terms of rural transport and getting people to clinics and all that sort of stuff becomes more of a problem the more elderly people you have. So it just highlights where a very obvious pressure for the next Assembly is going to be in terms of how these issues are going to be managed. Sorry, I should have said right at the start, if there's anything you want me to go back on, talk over or ask, just butt in. So, just to, I said we produced a paper on this, so I don't need to go into any great detail, but we know that we have a large public sector and a small private sector in Northern Ireland, which is characterised by low growth, low productivity, low pay, and is fairly high in economic inactivity, and yet consumer confidence at the moment is riding fairly high. So that's good news. But we're going to look at this first issue really, which is about the public-private sector balance. You can see here from this little chart, don't worry about the top bit, but at the bottom you can see this figure represents the number of jobs that are in the public sector, in other words the green bit, compared to the grey bit, which is the private sector, so about 26% in Northern Ireland. And if you look across to England, we're at 16%. They've got significant difference, so there's an obvious imbalance there, which I'm sure you've all known about for years. Now the executive is starting to address that through the voluntary exit scheme. Well, that's one of the measures. So the budget said that for next year, so for 16-17, out of the total available resources for voluntary exit of 200 million for 16-17, which was part of the Fresh Start agreement that this would be available, allocations have been made for 117.6 million to allow people to be paid off to leave early, and 25 million of that 200 will be used for capital purposes, so not for voluntary exit at all, and the remainder, so the difference between that and 200 is going to be available in June monitoring for departments to bid for additional resources to let people go. and we can see this table, the allocations, how that 117 million breaks down across the new departments in terms of where the voluntary exits will be happening. You can see there's a very big concentration around the Department of Education. There's 70 million there in terms of non-teaching, teaching workforce. There is nothing there allocated for the Department of, or DERA. So I suppose a very obvious question for this committee or this committee's successor is, will there be bids coming forward in June in terms of, you know, restructuring that workforce and allowing people to go? Maybe they've already reduced to the degree that they need.
DOE not reducing quite heavily.
DOE.
I think they've reduced quite heavily already.
DOE probably.
Yeah,
I think I suspect they have. Yes, I think they have.
2 weeks ago, saying that we're taking 300 out of the system.
Yeah, you see, it may be that, and I was talking about this with the Finance Committee last week. I mean, the DFP, I think, is down about 10% on its workforce. So about 10% of its workforce is gone. Now, a lot of these, you see here that these are all outside bodies. So I think what's happened is that the departments have dealt with the core first, and then this last kind of tranche for that year is for the ALBs.
Yeah.
The issue, I suppose, is knowing how much of the anticipated savings from voluntary exit have so far been realised, because this is all predicated on the assumption that you let people go, you save and you pay a bill. But the difficulty then, and I have read some criticism recently from Westminster in terms of UK government departments now, they're what they call non-core expenditure on staffing is going up again. So that having let a lot of people go, made people redundant, then you end up having to bring people back in, possibly as consultants. Now, obviously, we don't want to necessarily go down that route, but there is a need, obviously, to save money, year-on-year expenditure, the recurring expenditure. So there's some questions there, I'm sure, for the department about what they are planning, particularly in terms of the June monitoring for next year. Sorry, I should have mentioned the other thing that we've done, which was in your table of papers, is produce this paper, which is called an information sheet. We've got one of these for each of the departments, and what we've done is we've just tried to go through the specific issues that might be facing the functions of the current Agriculture Department in this case, and also looked at the accounts for the last year and any liabilities that will be transferring to the new department. So that's in the paper for you to look at and possibly consider asking some questions around when the opportunity arises. Another issue that we've been talking about with all the committees is that of the administration costs in departments. Now this is all your back office functions, so non-programme, non-frontline service delivery, and the overall pattern across the NICS, as you can see over that period from 2011-12 to up to November of this current financial year is obviously of decrease. Overall, we can see an 8.69% decrease in administrative spend across the whole of the NICS. But just to highlight that in the Department of Agriculture, there's been a 12.16% increase. So the question here is, well, what's driving that increase in administrative expenditure?
What excuses they made?
I haven't heard an excuse. I'm not sure. I haven't heard an explanation, I should say, rather than an excuse, because I need to remain neutral. But what we have here is a chart of DARD's administration costs. Now, what you can see, obviously, is this trend line. It's going up over that same period. Now, what I would note is that if you look where the red arrows are, that's the opening monitoring round position for each financial year. And you can see then, by the time we get to January each year, it's come down. So what that means is essentially at the start of the year they're having an allocation which seems on the face of it is possibly a bit too high, and then as the year goes on they're releasing resources perhaps from here and reallocating them somewhere else, and it's been coming down. But the overall trend is upwards, and I would just notice here. Oh, sorry, I didn't click that one. That's the January, the end of the year position. But for this current financial year, you'll see that for the first time across this period, the administration resources in November had actually gone up from the opening position. So that's the opposite of what it's been doing the other times. So there is a question there, I think, for the department about what's happening here. Now, one issue that may explain it perhaps is what happened with Rivers Agency, possibly. Rivers Agency became part of the core department again. Now, I don't, there may be other reasons as well, but I think it would be interesting for the department to explain what's going on there. It would be useful because obviously I'm sure certainly most committees and most members are interested in seeing those administration costs coming down rather than going up.
Something we've all suspected for quite a while, so to say it there, it's quite alarming, the rise.
Well, it is relatively significant.
Yeah, it is.
12%. It is relatively significant. So now there may well be a perfectly good explanation for it, but the point is to get that into the public domain. What is the explanation for it? So if we now move on to what's actually in the budget for next year, this first chart just shows the distribution of resource DEL, so that's your day-to-day spending. Obviously, pretty obviously, the health department's taking up a huge proportion of that, we know that. Agriculture is a small sliver of that, really, about 2%. And if we look, this was actually from the budget document that came out last week. Now, in the initial statement before Christmas, we didn't have the baseline. All we had was the allocation. Now, what we can see there is that the baseline that was constructed out of DARD's expenditure and those functions that are coming in from the Department of the Environment comes to 209.8. But the budget they've actually been allocated is 5.7% lower than that, but just under 200 million. So just to put that in a different way, the baseline was just over 2% of the total Northern Ireland resource DEL, and once that reduction is applied, it comes to 1.9%. So it's a small percentage of the overall, but it's getting smaller. In terms of capital, there's one, again, DARD isn't a particularly big spender in terms of capital. The reason I put this table in here is just to make it clear that these allocations here from the capital include those that were made for flagship projects. Now, in the presentation of the Minister's statement, it wasn't clear because there was the capital allocations plus the flagship projects, and I think it was actually a natural assumption to say, right, okay, we add those two together and see the total, but actually these are already included in those allocations. Not a big issue for DARD, but I thought I would just flag it up as a point of interest. The financial transactions capital is this form of capital resources which has to be used in a particular way in terms of an equity investment or a loan to the private sector. Now, there hasn't been a huge amount of success in using this money in Northern Ireland so far. DFP is trying to get an investment fund up and running. That has taken a lot longer, I think, than they initially intended. So about half of the money for next year in terms of financial transaction capital is to go into it. But there's no allocation there for DERA. And I just wonder whether or not the officials in the department have thought about whether or not they could use any of this resource to maybe in terms of the Forest Service, or I don't know what exactly, but potentially there might be some use there, and it's just a question of whether the officials have even considered it. Or there was at one stage talk of using financial transactions capital to help fund Going for Growth. An allocation was made, and then it was handed back because it didn't work in whatever way it was supposed to. Finally, then, in this allocation, there's for next year we've got a lot of central funds. Now, I've highlighted this mainly because there's over 115 million sitting centrally at the moment, and essentially the DFP sort of holds it in the middle until various things have been decided about how it will be used. For example, this funding for addressing paramilitary activity. Once the strategy is developed, then that money can be released to whoever's actually going to be spending it. In terms of the unallocated tax credit funding, for example, that's hinges upon Professor Everson's project to work out how to use that to mitigate the effects of welfare reform. But I suppose the important thing about that is there's £115 million there. That's basically what it... well, that's more than the budget allocated for the Assembly and the Executive Office put together. So it's quite a significant portion, you know, that we still don't really know what's going to happen with it. So that's why I've highlighted that. So just to sum up, really, in the lines of questioning paper that I mentioned earlier on, we had a number of questions that we thought would be useful to pose to each of the departments, really, in terms of how much of their resources are still committed. I mean, we just don't know from the budget documents, and whether or not there's whether the ministers will in May have any flexibility to choose how to spend their resources, or whether they won't. I mean, that's certainly an issue, I know, for DFP, and it will be for others, where there's lots of contractual commitments, and actually the minister doesn't really have very much flexibility at all. And then refer you back again to this sheet that we've produced that's tabled there for you. There's a number of issues such as the headquarters relocation, which is mentioned in the budget. But I noticed that in October, when the Minister talked about the total cost of that, this is on page 7 of the paper, it was to be 30.8 million capital, 14.3 million resource. But the only mention of it in the budget that I could find was for 10.4 million capital, but no mention of resource at all. So I don't know if that means they no longer need the resource for next year, or you know. But I think it would be useful to know what's happening with those relocations, and also to get a profile for when the money will be drawn down. Is it all to be? It's not all to be next year. So what's the profile over a number of years for that? Other issues generally relating to, this is page 8 now, whether the reduction in resource money will enable the department to distribute the basic payment scheme, whether in terms of regulatory inspections there is the scope to rationalise now that the environment functions and the agricultural functions are brought together, whether there's any scope there for reducing duplication of inspections or the number of visits that are required, whether that can release some efficiencies there. In terms of the rural development programme, there's a lot of the rural development programme is at least partially going to be used, it seems, or intended to be used to help pay for the Going for Growth programme. Now, in terms of Going for Growth, there's talk of, to the bottom of page 11, the Executive has agreed to make up to 250 million available to implement Farm Business Improvement Scheme. But the only specific allocation I could find was 5 million capital money for the new RDP, so that's Regional Development Programme, such as the Farm Business Improvement Scheme. So obviously there's a massive gap between 5 million and 250 million. So what's the period for the 250 million? And over what timescale is that 250 million to be made available? Do we know the likely split between resource and capital money, and whether, coming back to that issue of financial transactions capital, whether or not the department has considered whether they could leverage any of that money?
There's only 5 million earmarked for.
That's all I could find mentioned in the budget. Yeah. It's 5 million in capital, and that was on page 47 of the budget. That's the only specific. Now, part of the problem, of course, with the exercise that we're going through here is that the current department will no longer exist. So you've got a new department with a new incoming minister, and that minister must be given some scope to determine their priorities in terms of what the department is going to do. So, but having said that, Going for Growth appears, from what I can see, to be very much an executive commitment. So you would expect that to be reasonably.
I surmise the 5 million would mean, I suppose, given that it's not open for applications as yet, that in the first year, it's not going to get up to speed probably, and that's what I surmise why there's only 5 million.
Yes, that may well be the case, and which is why I'd suggested maybe trying to find out if there's a profile for that. Is it all backloaded, or what?
Yeah.
Over how many years are we expecting this? The Going for Growth strategy overall is up to 2020. I seem to remember reading.
That's right.
But it would be good to know, I think, over those next 4 years, are we expecting it all to be in the last year, for example? Because if we are, then there's always a risk with capital money that you get the timing wrong and you can't spend it, and then you can't carry it forward into the following year. So it would just be a case of just maybe thinking about that profiling.
Yeah.
So I think those are the main issues. I I worked with the clerk and with Mark Allen, who you know well, I think, in terms of trying to identify some of the key issues and see if we could find anything in the budget document. But if there are any other questions, I'm quite happy to take them.
Any other members? Any questions?
No.
In relation to.
Okay.
Listen. And Colin.
Okay.
No other questions? Thank you very much, Colin.
No.
Okay. Very well put together. Thank you.
No problem at all.
Move on. Members to agenda item 8, written briefing SL1 animals and animal products examination for residues and maximum residue limits regulations Northern Ireland 2016. I refer members to the clerk. memo at pages 114 to 115 and papers from the department at pages 116 to 150. Can I advise members that the regulations came before the committee on the 26th of May 2015, and at that time the committee agreed that the department should report back with an analysis of the consultation responses. 12-week consultation with relevant stakeholders was carried out between the 1st of June and the 21st of August 2015, and no responses were received. This regulation proposes to consolidate the animals and animal products examination for residues and maximum residue limits regulations in Northern Ireland 1988 into one piece of legislation, as there are a number of amendments associated with these regulations. This will produce a more accessible, transparent and user-friendly version of the legislation, and introduces no changes to the policy or to existing compliance requirements. The rule will be laid before the Assembly under the negative resolution procedure, and it is anticipated that it will come into operation in April 2016. Can I see comments from members? No comments, members. Can I seek agreement that the SL1 moves to the next legislative stage? Okay. As these regulations are cross-cutting, they will be laid jointly by DARD and DHSSPS. Can I therefore seek agreement that we inform the Committee for Health, Social Services and Public Safety of your decision that the SL1 move to the next legislative stage? Okay, members? And the 9 correspondence, confirm members the correspondence received at pages 154 to 167. Can I ask members to note the correspondence from DARD providing details of the current outbreak of avian flu in Scotland at page 154 to 155? The presence of a low pathogenic avian influenza LPA1H5N1 was confirmed on a broiler breeding chicken farm housing around 40,000 birds in Fife. Last Wednesday, 13th of January, the Scottish Chief Veterinary Officer set up a 1 kilometre low organic restricted zone around the affected premises. However, the authorities have declared that the outbreak does not present a significant risk. I advise members that Mr David Davin, Group Chief Executive of United Dairy Farmers, has been appointed to the European Commission's Agricultural Markets Task Force, which was established with a view to improving the position of farmers in the food chain. A memo of this effect is provided at page 156 to 157. Can I suggest that we send a letter of congratulations to Mr Davin on his appointment to the expert group? Okay, members? And also refer members to a notice from the Affairs Manager in your table of papers regarding the announcement last week that the Irish government has secured €200 million in loans from the European Investment Bank for 30 flood prevention protection projects across the Republic over the next 5 years. The loans were agreed by EIB board in the 17th of December 2015 and will be 55% match funded by the government. I advise members that a number of the EU explanatory memoranda have been forwarded to the committee for consideration at page 153. Can I seek agreement to action the rest of the correspondence as suggested in the index sheet at page 152 to 153?
Agreed.
Okay. Agenda item 10. Is there any other business? There's no other business. Item 11. Yes, on time of the next meeting. The next meeting of the Committee for Agriculture and Rural Development will take place on Tuesday, 26th of January 2016 at 1:30 p.m. in Room 30, Parliament Buildings. I declare. Can I advise members? Oh, well, sorry. I advise members that we will now move into closed session to discuss the forward vote programme. I almost forgot about that. So, we're in a closed session.